On today's episode of Locked On Angels, we're recapping yesterday's game against the Brewers. Johnny's going to help you pick the best Angels for your fantasy baseball team. And the current players are talking and not talking about a former player. We've got you all covered on Locked On Angels. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use our promo code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Happy Tuesday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every single day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, we're going into our third season here at Locked On Angels, and we're talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday with you. We post our audio at 4 a.m. on the West Coast, video at 5 a.m. on the West Coast, so you can start your day with the Super Halo Bros, maybe listen to us on your commute. We would love to be part of that. On today's show, how are the players reacting to an Ohtani-less clubhouse? And I'm going to help you pick the right Angels for your fantasy team. But first, Mike, we're going to recap that game from yesterday. However, there was some breaking news last night about Blake Snell signing with the Giants 2 years, $62 million with an opt-out after year 2. Thank goodness he did not go to the Astros, but he did bust our spring training prediction, our hot take. So I'm a little upset about that.
That's what you're upset about.
That's what I'm
You're upset
about
being wrong there. Okay, that's
Yes.
cool. Listen, Johnny, I'm not surprised that Blake Snell didn't sign with the Angels. I think a lot of fans are not surprised. We are going to talk a bit about the roster on tomorrow's show, and we'll discuss the non-signing of Blake Snell. But honestly, that's where I land right now is I'm not surprised. Are you surprised at all?
I'm not surprised Artie Moreno didn't sign Blake Snell. That's what I'm not surprised about.
Right.
wasn't the Angels not signing. It was Artie Moreno. But what a disservice, and I'll talk about this more tomorrow. What a disservice to your star player who signed a lifetime extension with you, who's begging for a free agent signing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be Snell, but anything at this point. So
give me a warm body.
Seriously, man. Trout's asking for Tommy Pham. Like, who wants Tommy Pham? Good grief.
Okay, let's talk about this game yesterday.
Right.
The Angels
Reset.
did lose 4-3 to the Brewers. It's their 6th consecutive loss in spring training, but don't get too caught up in the numbers. I know that can be concerning, but don't get too caught up in the numbers. You had a good tweet yesterday with a Locked On Everydayer, I think on the Super Halo Brothers Twitter, and you had said, here's some things to look for. And that's what's really important in spring is to look for the keys to the team being better, some key growth, like Griffin Canning. He did pitch pretty well. He gave up 2 runs in 4 1/3 innings. The 6 hits were a lot. He had to work around those hits. He did strike out 2, and he only walked 1. And that's been the key to Griffin Canning so far this spring, Johnny, is that he hasn't walked a lot of batters. So when he does give up hits, it's not as bad as it could have been if he gave free passes at the plate, right? And so I think that Griffin Canning is lining himself up, and there hasn't been an announcement yet, but I think Griffin Canning's lining himself up as the possible opening day starter. Do you agree?
I mean, I don't know if I agree with him being the opening day starter, but I could see that it's kind of the stars are falling that way, Mike. What are your thoughts on Griffin Canning being the starter on opening day?
I think right now he's been the most consistent guy in the spring, and I think it's going to be between him and Chase Silseth. Both of those guys have been consistent,
Really?
And it seems kind of silly. I get it because Griffin Canning isn't your ace, and neither is Chase Silseth. But with the 3 other guys and the way that they've performed so far this spring, I just don't know if you want to give them a shot to be the opening day starter. I think that you have it be somebody that earned it, and I think Griffin Canning so far has earned it. And speaking of earning it, John, Hunter Strickland has pitched really well this spring. And Then yesterday came and he did give up a 2-run home run. It was a 2-run home run that broke the tie in the 5th inning, right?
He was cruising right along, and it was, a 2-run homer to Willy Adames, who, if you make a mistake to Willy Adames, who does not bat for a great average, but he is going to take you for a ride, and that's what he did. It did break the tie. It came on an 0-2 pitch, and that's the thing about Strickland is he's been throwing strikes this spring, Mike, and so I think he is earning his way into the bullpen. We did a little poll on Locked On Angels Twitter yesterday, and the results came back that everybody wants Ben Joyce in the bullpen. But at the same time, it looks like Drew Pomeranz and Hunter Strickland kind of follow that. Gio Zuniga was kind of the last one in last place there. But I'm wondering if people want Ben Joyce just because he's exciting and they want him in the pen. But to me, I think at this point, if you have the flexibility with Ben Joyce to put him in the minors, and then you have some options there, Hunter Strickland and Pomeranz kind of make the most sense. But Strickland, he's been one of the best Angels this spring with throwing strikes, 10 strikeouts and no walks in 8 innings. And then speaking of Ben Joyce, he came in, pitched a scoreless inning, hit 102 miles per hour with the fastball. He walked 2, and then he had a conversation with Barry Enright, got that last ground out. And again, I think that's going to be his bread and butter, Mike, is don't rely on the strikeout. Just get guys to induce weak contact against your fastball, and you're going to be just fine. He had walked 9 in 7 1/3 innings. And then Carlos Estevez seems to be finding it now, pitched a perfect inning and struck out 2 batters yesterday.
And those are some things you want to pay attention to. Joyce having a great outing, Carlos Estevez having a great outing, and even Hunter Strickland, he's been good, but that 0-2 home run when he's up 0-2, that's what you also want to pay attention to see what the Angels do when they are ahead in the count. Now, as far as the hitting side of the game, Mickey Moniak lined a routine single to right field, John, and the ball got by the outfielder, and he pulled a Louis Rengifo. He didn't hustle for that ball, man. That ball went right by him, and Moniak got to third. But here's another thing that you want to pay attention to. He's at third, nobody out. Johnny, did the Angels score?
They did not, Michael. They did not score. With a runner on third and nobody out. Miguel Sano, what was it? What, a strikeout to Sano, a strikeout to Adele, and a fly out by Theis, or if I recall correctly, Miguel Sano did draw 2 walks in this game. He's 6 for 35 with a 171 average, but the 6 walks and 3 home runs kind of put him at an OPS of 739. So his walk percentage is on base is kind of helping him out there in his slugging as well. And then Livan Soto, give that guy some credit, man, because he is really trying to make a case for himself to be somebody off the bench, but he had a suicide squeeze, as they call it, with a bunt, and they had Zach Neto. Neto was coming down the line, whether he got that bunt down or not, but it did tie the game in the 4th inning. Ron Washington said he would begin using more of that kind of situational hitting for the final week of games in Arizona. Mike, talk about the defense in this one.
Yeah, Theis was catching, and he threw out a runner trying to steal. John, I didn't know this stat until we were putting the show together, but the Angels have thrown out 36.7% of would-be base stealers this spring. That's the 3rd best rate in the majors so far. So we talked a lot about Logan O'Hoppe and his offense, but we also talked a lot about on this pod Logan O'Hoppe and his defense and how he needs to be somebody that they can count on behind the plate. And it seems like he's really taking some steps to become better, as is Matt Theis, and Theis throwing out the runner is great. Now, I'd love to see if they're throwing out major league runners versus minor league runners. I know that there's specifics there, but I do think throwing a runner out with bigger bases, not being able to throw over to first too often, you can get bigger leads. To have the 3rd best rate in the majors, I think that's a good indication that both Theis and O'Hoppe are improving their pop time and they're improving their awareness on the field.
Yeah, Matt Theis looked a little slow getting up from that one yesterday. And in fact, I think everyone might agree, I don't think that guy was out. I think if there was replay in spring training, they would have definitely overturned it. And even Terry Smith and Trent Rush on the broadcast were kind of like, hey, I'll take it though, because as long as these guys are getting their work in and they're making it happen, I think that was kind of a gimme yesterday for Matt Theis. At the same time, it is good to see that he's having some success there. Mike, the Angels and the Reds are playing today. It's going to be Reed Detmers on the mound against Hunter Green, who's also somebody highly touted for the Rays. Mike, what about your boy Detmers for opening day? What do you say?
I think if Reed continues to improve, he probably will be the guy that will start opening day. He had that one really terrible start, but each start after that has been better. And so I'm going to really pay attention to what he does today. And if he's throwing first pitch strike, I love what Sandy did in his last start. 15 of the 19 batters got a first pitch strike. That's a key to the Angels being really successful because it allows them to run to 3 strikes. It allows them to not just waste a lot of pitches. And so I'm going to really pay attention to Detmers. I'm also going to pay attention today to the offense, John. And depending on what they do with the lineup, I know Trout wasn't in the lineup in yesterday's game. What they do with the lineup, I think will be intriguing because I want to see how they'll do against Hunter Green because they've had some really tough starting pitchers the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't really had the full lineup in there. I think only against, I think, Zach Gallen.
Zach Gallen, yeah.
Yeah, that was the only time they had really kind of the full lineup in there. But Zach's really good, right? And so I want to see what they'll do against a really good starting pitcher. And as Wash said, they're going to take some risks and they're going to push the ball a bit. And they're going to have some situational moments and maybe a squeeze play. So I'm really intrigued to see when that actually shows up on the field and what the effectiveness will be of that.
And one thing I noticed, and I did put it in that tweet from yesterday, is on Matt Theis's ground ball up the middle for a base hit, Neto's cruising first to third, Mike. He was not stopping. He was going all the way to third, whether they liked it or not. And that's the kind of aggressive base running that I think is going to underscore this season.
Jeff Fletcher has a really good article about the Angels base running in the OC Register. So check it out. You can just go to his Twitter page, but he talks a lot about the Angels moving first to third. They were like the worst team last year. And now they're the best team in the spring. And so I think that that's going to be something that will carry over to the regular season as well.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. Coming up, if you're going to draft anybody from the Angels for your fantasy league, which ones should you take? Well, I'm here to help you out because got some thoughts on who would be the best options for you for this year's fantasy baseball season. That's coming up in just a minute.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And it's every basketball fan's favorite month of the year. The tournament is here, and I'm excited to watch both the men's and the women's side. And you can be excited to watch it too and possibly win some cash. You got some hoops knowledge. Turn that into some serious cash. There's a few fun features on the app called the Demons and Goblins. I don't know if you saw this, Johnny, but the demon picks, they're marked in red. And the reason why they're called demon picks is because they're the scary picks because they make your heart beat, right?
Good thing you're a pastor. Man, I feel safe since you're here with me.
Cast that demon out. So they're going to make your heart beat a little bit faster because you have a chance to win big money, as in 100 times your money. So if you bet $10, you could win $1,000. So that's exciting, but it's also pretty scary. If you're more cautious like me, then you can choose what's called a goblin pick, which is marked in green because it's designed to keep you in the green and allow you to land consistent victories. I think I'm going to do that because I just want consistency, right? The payout is less than a demon pick, but your chances to keep your money and your winning streak are going up, up, up when you do that. So download the app today, enter our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Once again, that's LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, all lowercase, and you'll get a first deposit match of up to $100. Join Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
It's a Locked On Podcast Network where it's your team every single day. Every day is mark your calendars because tomorrow, March 20th at 7 p.m. for Pacific, the best MLB season preview is coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. Again, March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for Pacific. You can be the first to get the insight from the local experts of Locked On the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it March 20th, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern for Pacific on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app.
The big question that all Angel fans are wondering, and maybe even baseball fans are wondering, are how are the players reacting to Ohtani not being around in the clubhouse anymore?
Right.
So Taylor Ward happily gave an answer. He said, It's nice to be able to have our space back a little bit more. That doesn't mean that they're glad that Ohtani's gone. In fact, they're sad that he's gone because they loved him in the clubhouse. Of course, they loved him on the field, but they just appreciate the smaller media presence.
Right.
Somebody who is not a media darling, Anthony Rendon, said the last few years, maybe this was what it was like being in the Beatles. And he said, you don't get used to that. You don't get used to the attention. You kind of expect it. But now that Ohtani is gone, Rendon said, it's like being kicked out of the band. I like that. Hey, he's funny. That's good news, right?
I'm sure a lot of people would like to kick Rendon out of the band, Angel fans. But
that was funny. I like that. So the media surrounding Ohtani were just a lot of media, right? And we got stories told to us, and you see in the news that the media would arrive around 5 a.m. during spring training. Woo. And when they were asked why they arrived so early, they would tell the coaches and managers, specifically Ray Montgomery, that they were there just in case Ohtani showed up and did something. In fact, John, one Japanese reporter who covered Ohtani regularly for years, and he said this under anonymity. He didn't want anybody to know that this was him that said this, right? Yeah. So he said, I always felt that the players were very wary of us. We're basically here to cover one guy, but we're trying to get other stuff related to this one guy. And he knows, and he could feel, and he saw it on the faces of the players that they were a little bit irritated with all of this media when Ohtani was around.
And I appreciate this reporter, giving an honest answer. Like, yeah, I could understand that the players were wary of us. And honestly, I mean, I don't blame the reporter. I don't blame the players because that was their job. Right. And I mean, just with how much national coverage Ohtani was getting here, think about what it's like in Japan, Mike. And so these guys, these reporters are out there trying to get as much as they can. Not only do the players appreciate the slower pace, but Angels PR staff as well. The Angels communication manager, Grace McNamee, who speaks Japanese, would make notes on Ohtani's unique schedule and coordinate photo opportunities. Ray Montgomery says, now that Ohtani's gone, I've never seen Grace so relaxed.
I'm sure.
The young players also shared that it was intimidating to have so many media people around, and they would do their best to stay out of the way.
Besides the media presence, John, here are some other changes that the players have noticed since Ohtani left. One of the changes, the food choices. According to some players, they said that the food that was provided in the clubhouse was influenced by Ohtani's needs. For example, when he was recovering from his first elbow surgery, there would be food there that would be optimized for his recovery. They were prioritized. So there would be a rotating menu of food that had lean protein, vegetables, carbohydrates. And so they've noticed the change because Ohtani's not there anymore. And a lot of the players were like, we're kind of bummed because it was really good food.
It's better than telling them to go, just get Chick-fil-A on your way in, like they did to CJ Wilson 10 years ago.
Right.
Other major changes, Mike, the security is lighter. Tickets are easier to get. There's far less commotion for autographs. The biggest change for the players, not having to talk about Ohtani after every win and loss. Often players would have a great game, but of course, the inevitable questions about Ohtani would come, and the players weren't mad about it. They just appreciate the fact that, the questions are about the game that they've played. They're about the team that they're on and their own performance as well. And that Ohtani had his friends in the dugout. You saw Patrick Sandoval and Jose Suarez and those guys, like they all had a good time together. But I think the star power of Ohtani, especially for young guys like Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, and I know Nolan Shawnuel and Ohtani's path didn't cross too much last year, but you can imagine being 21 years old in a new situation and not wanting to get in the way of anything, or even kind of like learning on the fly, like, all right, how do I be in this situation? How do I operate in this situation? But Mike, considering how big Ohtani was for the Halos, does this change help the players? Can they be more relaxed? Do you think it's a bad thing? What do you think?
I'm a rhythm guy, and I when COVID happened, it took away the three things that I'm about. I like future, I like consistency, and I like rhythm, and all of that was taken away. And so when we were able to get some of that back, it was just like a warm blanket for me. And I wonder for these players if there is a bit of that warm blanket without having to have all of the chaos around them. And this isn't to blame anybody, of course. No. It's the Michael Jordan of baseball, and you want to get the Michael Jordan of baseball in front of the camera as often as you possibly can. And it seemed like there was a great relationship with Ohtani and the other players. But I do think that it might give them a bit more peace. I think it might give them a bit more flexibility. And there isn't such a spotlight on these players. And I think that that's good, because with the lack of free agent signings and with the lack of player development and not really sure what these players can do, we're excited about them, but not really sure what these players can do. I think that it gives them the space to be able to figure some things out. I do say that alternatively, if the Angels are good and perhaps they even get to the playoffs, let's say, right? That I think will then shine the big spotlight, because the spotlight will be the Ohtani-less Angels have made it to the playoffs, right? And so there's going to be that narrative that they'll have to navigate if they end up getting there, right?
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When you and I played together, I know this is just an anecdote, but when you and I played softball together, I was fine. I wasn't very good, but then sometimes people would need like a fill-in, and I would go and play on their team, and I'd play the outfield, and I'm out there making diving catches and hitting 4 for 4, and you would always be like,
that guy?
Yeah, why aren't you like this for our team? And I always call it little brother syndrome. I got nervous around my big brother and my friends. And when I played on another team that didn't have the people I didn't want to let down, I don't know why, I just felt kind of more free to do that. So in a sense, I wonder if the Angels and the young guys will kind of have their own little brother syndrome removed, because Ohtani won't be there, and then they can just kind of go out and play their game and be free with it.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Amazon Fire TV is your destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers an amazing viewing experience. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, which is almost here, or it's the college basketball tournament, which is here right now, you're going to want to watch and have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos of your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the pro leagues and the college conferences too. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more. And they're going to keep you up to date on the latest in the world of sports. They also have great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And to learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. I have to say goodbye to my spring training hot take that Blake Snell was going to sign with the Angels, but not with FanDuel. FanDuel has your back. Whether you're betting on a big upset, like I was betting on, or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, I'm talking to you, get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. So again, you don't have to bet on each individual game and try to get your perfect bracket. You can bet on whatever you want when it comes to the college hoop season. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets.
Something you may not know about my brother John is that he's sneaky good at fantasy baseball, and it's frustrating. So if he had little brother syndrome when he was playing softball with me, I had big brother syndrome when I played fantasy baseball with him, because I just could not beat him. He would always have that sneaky good player that he would get off of waivers, or he would make the right trade or whatever. So he's got some good information for you as to what Angels you should or maybe shouldn't take as you prepare your fantasy season. So Johnny, take it away.
One season we played against each other. I got that season where Chris Davis had like 47 home runs for the Orioles that year.
It's still fresh in my mind.
Oh yeah. Listen, the big question here is, are there any Angels worth taking in fantasy baseball this season? Now, I know it can be tempting to take players from your favorite team, but try to resist the temptation, because
I will.
It doesn't mean that there aren't some halos that don't have something to offer, Mike. There are some things here that I want to discuss. So let's talk about which Angels you might want to draft and have on your team this season. But before we do that, keep in mind, I'm going to use a term called ADP. That's the average draft position. This is the number a player gets taken and in the order they get taken. So number 1 might be Ronald Acuna Jr. Somewhere down below 100 might be, I don't know, Brandon Drury, right? The straight 1 through whatever order. So if somebody has an ADP of 62, here's another way to think about it. That would mean in a 10-team league, they would be taken about the 6th round and be taken at the 2nd pick, right? So if they're 62, then taking them somewhere between 60 and 70 is reasonable. So keep that in mind as I talk about ADP. I'm going to first talk about Mike Trout. Mike, ADP of 50. So they're saying he's going to get taken 50th overall. Mike Trout, unfortunately, is no longer a first rounder when it comes to fantasy baseball. There were years where he would be your number 1 pick guaranteed, but especially for the outfield this year, you're going to find a lot of great picks before Trout, and you want some 5-tool players like Fernando Tatis Jr., Kyle Tucker, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, who still has outfield eligibility. However, Trout would make a great 2nd outfielder, or maybe if you're lucky, a 3rd outfielder. Just make sure you've got 1 or 2 that you like first before you get to Trout. But why Trout, Mike? Well, Mike Trout, he's going to get you power, home runs, doubles, triples, RBIs. So if you're playing in a league where you're scoring those, definitely take Mike Trout. Last year was a top player in hard hit percentage, exit velocity, barrel percentage, sweet spot percentage, and he's going to be batting 3rd this year. So he's going to have a lot of chances to drive in runs and get you some RBIs. And if you happen to be a league with an on-base percentage category, he's going to have at least a 10% walk rate, if not higher. And then his expected weighted on-base average, or WOBA, was 389 last year. I see that being about 400 this year. Mike, you want to talk about Logan O'Hoppe because you like him so much? Is that cool?
Yeah, so I'm going to just look at your fancy notes here. This is not from me. This is from John because I have no idea what I'm doing when I do fantasy baseball. So this is all from John. So Logan O'Hoppe has an ADP of 217. So in a 10-team league, that's round 21, 7th pick. So when you're picking a catcher, you want the most offensive production that you can get. So some top catchers to take would be Adley Rutschman of the Orioles, Will Smith of the Dodgers, Yanner Diaz. He also has some first base eligibility with the Astros, Francisco Alvarez of the Mets, and Gabriel Moreno of the D-backs. He's got a consistent batting average. Johnny, why O'Hoppe? Why would you even consider him?
Well, for O'Hoppe, he's going to make a great backup catcher option. So don't take him as your first catcher, but take him as a backup, because when your main catcher has an off day, you plug in O'Hoppe. Since you don't have to worry about his defense, he's going to be really productive. Last year, he had an expected slugging of 500, 90.5 mile an hour exit velocity, average exit velocity, 15.6% barrel rate, and a 46.7% hard hit rate. Mike, he's going to get a lot of chances to DH as well. So if your catcher has an off day, you can bet that O'Hoppe is either going to be catching or DHing. And that way, you won't have a hole in the catcher slot in your starting lineup.
Johnny, tell me about Luis Rengifo, because you got him listed on here as well. And I know that he is somebody Angel fans love, and then other Angel fans love to complain about. So tell me why you would even consider Luis.
Well, he's got an ADP of 283, so he's not getting taken in any early rounds, right? But if you're at the end of the draft, Mike, and you need to fill a bench spot, take Rengifo. And the main reason why is because of his eligibility at second, third, shortstop, and the outfield. So you can plug him into any spot that you don't have a player playing that day in your lineup, whether it's second, third, short, or the outfield. Again, you don't have to worry about his defense, because all you really need to be concerned about is his offense. No one's going to have him on their radar. If he ends up at leadoff, we're going to see him get you a lot of runs scored for your fantasy team. Mike, he's someone you can slot in when your position starter has an off day. So if you got a really great shortstop and he's not playing that day, you can slide in Rengifo there. Think of it this way. If the Angels are playing a game 4 on a Thursday during the day, it's a day game. Other teams might have the day off on Thursday because they're traveling. And these are always the kinds of games at the end of a series where the Angels typically bring in like a Rengifo to give Rendon a day off, right? And so while the rest of your superstar teams might have the day off, you might see the Angels playing a day game on Thursday where you can slot Rengifo into your order. Mike, I got a couple of other suggestions as well Brandon Drury, I think, would be a great infield backup as well. Again, I wouldn't take him first, but because he can play first base and second base, and maybe even third eventually this season if he gets some starts over there, he's going to give you great power as a backup player on your team. And finally, Mike, I'm going to go with Zach Neto. He's only got shortstop eligibility, but if you can take him as a backup and you need him to fill in for your shortstop on a specific day, he's projected this year to score 70 runs, 18 home runs, 65 RBIs, 9 stolen bases. I think you and I might think that he can get more than 9.
I think so. Yeah.
This year. And he's going to he's projected for a 249 average, but if you're putting him in on days where you just need a shortstop to back up your main shortstop, that average might not hurt you as much. And you might luck out with one of those days where Zach Neto is able to rip a homer over the wall. So again, Trout, O'Hoppe, Rengifo, and maybe Drury and Zach Neto for your fantasy team. Again, don't go picking Angels in the first round. That's not what you want to do
right
here.
Right.
Take them a little bit later on, especially some of these other guys. They're your backups to your main starters this season.
John, the fantasy baseball shark. I love
it.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Every dayers, remember that Locked On has launched its first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. And you can find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening to today's show, come on over to YouTube, find today's episode, get in the comments section, and be part of the conversation. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
Well, we teased it a bit at the top, but let me tease it again. Matt Moore shared something really early in spring training that kind of went under the radar, but it goes against the narrative out there that the Angels aren't an attractive destination, or their lack of big moves keep players away, or that they're not going to be successful because they haven't made these free agent signings and big splashes. He said something that I really appreciated. We want to share it with you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. I love Matt Moore. Would you like that? More. Until tomorrow's show, everybody, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Runs scored. That's what I always never prioritized, and I would get beat in fantasy all the time.
That's
Runs
great.
scored.